Hey guys, this time we switched on our streaming from Zoom to Teams. So if the quality is a little bit shit, be sure to let we should be sure to let Microsoft know. I don't think they'll do much about it, but let's see how this goes. We're doing this again,
Fuck. I didn't know that
and
we
this
would do this
time,
again.
yeah, he was completely unaware for like until 15 minutes ago when Vele joined the chat and we introduced them to each other and we're like, okay, Vele, you're supposed to take all beat Mihir into submission. And Mihir, let's do this.
Let's go for it.
So, how's it going, guys? How has quarantine been treating you? How are you, Vere?
Not too bad, can't complain. By this time, I think I'm just used to it. It has to be done, but not thrilled about it.
Are you usually on Zoom calls and like meetings like this, or do you usually do most of your stuff person to person, like in person?
It's mostly Teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like Diresh told me, we have quite abused Zoom to the point that we can't use it anymore.
Yeah,
So
pretty much what happened to us too. So
yeah, mostly Teams these days.
How
nice.
much is a Zoom subscription, by the way?
Too much.
Used to be.
So the reason why we are using Teams internally is because we've had O365 for quite a bit of time now, and we've been using Teams on and off for most of our calls with some of our clients. But since we already have it, we were like, you know what, we should probably give this one a spin before we go. We previously noticed that it has quality issues when it comes to the recordings, but I think in this instance, the quality of the content should be able to cover up for the potato quality of the videos.
Let's
Okay.
hope so.
Okay, let's get to it. First problem.
What are we talking about today?
So Vele and I have been chatting about how marketing is. So we actually connected in the weirdest way, right? Like we ran into each other at Coffee Bean, right?
Java Lounge.
Java Lounge. We ran into each other at Java Lounge and we sat and somehow we came to the topic of behavioral economics. We've both of us had we had consumed some of Rory Sutherland's content, and then we were talking about that stuff. We were throwing some ideas back and forth, some of which have not materialized yet, but we're working on that. So it struck me because Vele is a person who he actually thinks, right? Like that's pretty rare these days. So so I thought, like, why not? Like he's a planner and he's been doing this for a while as well, and he understands at least to me, with my limited experience in authentic advertising or like established advertising agencies, it felt like he knew what he was talking about. So I was like, let's get him on. Let's see what's going on here. And I was like, okay, Vele, what do you want to talk about? And then Vele said,
Vele said what?
what did Vele say?
What did Vele say? So, is this when I tell you what I said?
Yes, this is indeed the cue.
All right. So basically, I think Diresh, you asked me what needs to change the marketing scene. So my response to that was a collaboration between brands and between departments and between all kinds of entities actually, and also sometimes you need to stand up and say fuck you to the hierarchy.
Okay, 2 poignant points. Okay, but okay. So collaboration when you say collaboration, Vele, what are you talking about? So that you have to unpack that entire thing. There's brands, there is departments, there is brands and departments. What are you talking about? Are we talking about collaboration between brands, or are we talking about collaboration between departments?
I was actually thinking about both. Between departments, basically to answer the question, who is responsible when it comes to reshaping the brand and being there for the people when during these times? Who is responsible for bringing in the revenue when there's an impending recession, right?
Yeah.
So basically, to point to the fact that it's not any one department's problem. Everyone needs to be creative. Everyone needs to give solutions and stuff like that.
Correct.
Whereas brands, I see a lot of brands putting out these very siloed messages saying we are doing this, but the moment, let's say, a telco and a delivery service pair up together, let's say 3-4 different brands pair up together, the possibilities just expand exponentially, even, I would say. Just things I've noticed.
Okay. So the objective of this entire exercise is Mazang. So if you ask me what should change in marketing from what I know, and amongst the advertising fraternity and the marketing fraternity, my biggest point is the focus on consumer centricity should just go up significantly, and that is probably the most the most notable interaction between creating value for a company. So as your marketing team's interaction with consumers increases, proportionate increase in value, there's a proportionate increase in value as well. This is very easily visible my experience, if you have a brand manager that goes to the market and does 150 hours of consumer work per year, versus a brand manager that sits in office and does all the operational work, comes up with campaigns, etc. I can guarantee tell you, between 150 hours versus 10 hours of consumer work, the guy with the 150 hours may not put out as many pieces, may not be as creative, but his pieces and his work create more value. Empirically, I can tell you that without any, with my experience, without any doubt, I can tell you that without any question. So increasing consumer centricity is the one thing that you need to change. Even in advertising agencies, what I see today is the idea. So, I mean, advertising agencies are in this very precarious situation, right? Where the value is given to the idea that they create. And the crazier the idea, the further away the idea is from the established norm, the more they get paid, the more accounts they get, because they will go to award shows, do creatives, and creatives will win, and they will clients will see them, and so they will go through this cycle of creating more material that is more creative. What they have to balance out is, if they go on a creative tangent, because remember, advertising is not it's not a purely creative art, it's a commercial art. It's a commercial discipline. The more you push purely on a creative tangent, you lose sight of the insight. You leave the insight behind. And as in the many conversations that I've had with all of you, I've told you, creating an insight is probably one of the hardest things to do. Or seeing an insight, observing an insight is probably one of the hardest things to do. And it is footwork, it is grind work, and it is actually going and talking to as many people as possible, and then you get an insight. Because insights can't be created. They have to be observed. They have to be seen. Yeah, they have to be surfaced. They have to be unearthed.
So there's an entire discovery process over there that you need to actually go through.
Yeah, you can't sit at an office and write an insight. I guarantee you it can't be done. And if you do write an insight from in an office, even then you have to go out and validate
confirm it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to write your entire focus. If there one thing that has to get changed is increasing your interaction with the consumer and building skill amongst the people that interact with the consumer. For example, the marketing team to see the insight or unearth the insight, which is by improving their skills in direct-to-consumer conversations, teaching them how to observe an environment, giving them a lot of other insight from other categories, etc. Those help people to confirm themselves and create insights better. You do that. That is the one thing that has to change, and you do that, and more you do that, you will get better and better value. If there's one thing that has to change, that is the one thing that has to change. If you can get that done through a creative group like advertisers, your insight, your value created for the company that they're working for, the brand that they're working for, will be exponential. We do this massive consumer work group connects, where 30, 40 multiple agencies, all of us go for 3-4 days, talk to 150 consumers on different subjects, various communications, etc. And every night we review the conversations we had, and we talk about the insights we saw, the observations we saw, and we craft insights out of it. I get more out of a single day of work where they go to 10 houses each than I would get in a space of 6 months. Because everyone is clicking very fast. So it's very, very important that both advertising agencies, marketeers must do it, because that is their fundamental. Growth hypothesis is their fundamental role. Number one, how you get growth hypothesis? Through understanding consumer behavior and consumer insight. So doing that is mandatory. If advertisers do it as much, that will create more value for all brands across this country. Sorry, that was a long form answer.
If this was Twitter, you'd be stuck about 5 minutes.
Yeah, so that's the
Right.
the one thing that has to get changed, I suppose.
Yeah. I when you said that, this story came to mind. I think Diresh, I told you also.
Yeah.
In the 1980s, I think they did a survey in the US, and to find out what the most respected professions were.
Yeah.
So it was one before last was congressman, and the last was advertising person. So people working in advertising, right?
So
yeah. So
well, I was in advertising, and we always used to say, and we still say, because all my friends are in advertising, we always say there's a special place in hell for us, a padded room with a straight jacket, specially for us.
yeah. I've heard that a couple of times. So anyway, during the same period in the UK, right? In the UK, a lot had changed, because Bernbach, did I say that right? Bernbach. Anyway, so this guy, So this guy introduced the planning, the art of bringing in consumer research, what the consumers think, into advertising, right? So I think to your point, Machang, you were spot on. It also connects to my story about collaboration, because now see, you, like you said, marketers need to do their research. They need to go and see what the people are thinking, and then us as an advertising agency, we also need to do that, right? But what happens most of the time, at least in my experience, is that the two ends don't meet. The marketer will go and do their own research, that the planner will go and do their own research, And there is no middle ground where information is collected and where collective growth is facilitated, right? So I think collaboration plugs into what you said as well.
Okay, so let me break that down. So when you say research is a very broad
Correct.
spectrum. I am for structured research. Let's just leave out for a little while. My ex-boss used to say, screw doing 5 million rupee product test, go and talk to 20 consumers and we will get exactly what's going to happen or not going to happen. You will know, right? I am by no means saying that structured research is not important. It's very important. But consistently going and talking to consumers direct face to face, and there's no way out of this, is the primary mode of unearthing insight, consumer insight, consumer behavioral insight.
I have an issue here, which is that now with the current situation, right? How would you perform customer interviews in this environment? Like, I mean, I understand if you're a B2B company, because you could at least email a couple of people and ask them to come on a call and speak with them. But for people who are doing products or consumer level stuff, how would they work around with what we're having right now? And I'm assuming that this is not going to just end with the lifting of the curfew as well, right? Because people are going to be a little bit more educated about how to perform social distancing and all of that, and we'll probably have that going on for a bit of time. So
Correct.
How are you going to convince people to be like, hey, we really need to come and talk to you to figure out whether what we are trying to solve is actually a problem that needs to be solved? And they are going to be like, you know what, I'm not really comfortable with sitting down with a whole bunch of people in these kind of situations. What would you consider a modern methodology to be able to tackle that?
No, you can do it on. So, for example, when I worked when I was in regional team, I did consumer connects over Skype. I was sitting in India. My consumer was in Pakistan, and I used to get all of them down to a conference room and ask them questions through a translator. So there is no way out of it. I mean, even here. You are right. We have challenges right now, but we are setting up systems so that we can still connect with the consumer. It's not happening right now because people's minds are
not on this. Yeah.
Not on this, and this when there's so much external pressure, you see odd behavior and not necessarily the behavior that you're looking for. But the products that we are putting out or we intend to put out as a result of COVID-19 will almost always be checked through a consumer check, and we have a database of people. We will do VCs, we will set up Skype, we'll figure out a way, but we will do it. That's one thing that we can be assured is we will not do it. We will not go ahead and launch something on a whim and a fancy. I mean, see, we have hundreds, like we have so much experience, we can do it, but we will still test it. We will always test it. I mean, we will not depend on our experience and our knowledge of the market merely to put out a product. It will happen through, we will do consumer work, at least on video conferencing.
Yeah, no, because definitely I think pre this lockdown versus post this lockdown, what people are going to be considering important problems to be solved is going to be different as well. One of the things that I don't really see, how I don't fully comprehend how it's going to pan out, is how many people in Colombo are
Dual went off.
Yeah, he froze in the weirdest pose.
Anyway, we'll get to the second question, no?
So no, even on the point of collaboration, right? Like I was in the experience I've had with the IT sector. I found out that the worst people to come up with ideas for software and ideas for apps are the developers themselves, because they get so entrenched in how cool the tech can be, right? And that ends up being a bunch of features that you never use. Like no
Correct.
one in their straight minds would ever use those features. Like
Yeah.
even in research, it shows that like 80% of 80 to 90% of features put into some apps are never used.
Correct. Correct. That's because it's being developed from the perspective of a developer and not from the perspective of a consumer or a user.
Yeah.
So
So at that point, if there's collaboration between the marketing team and the developing team, where the marketing team is more in charge of, I suppose, the general purpose of the app, so that then you can figure out what features need to be built into it, then
Yeah.
it's easier for the developers to, I mean, they don't have to spend that much time developing features no one is going to use, right?
Yeah, so the golden rule has always been the golden rule. Consumer centricity is everyone's job. There are two things that is everyone's job. One is quality, one is consumer centricity. Quality is everyone's job. Quality delivery is always everyone's job. Consumer centricity is everyone's job. It's everyone's ideas. It's everyone. So instead of only having 10 marketers, 20 marketers, 30 marketers, everyone from manufacturing to finance goes through the process. Now, like in evolved companies, you see it very clearly. The finance people go on Consumer Connect. That happens. Not often, but they do. And it is collaboration that creates value. For example, if I see an opportunity in the market right now, the first person I call is my R&D guy and say, this is the kind of opportunity I see. Then the second person I would call is my finance guy to see whether that opportunity can be valued. So you go through this cycle. Like the people in the no one can do the construct of marketing, because I repeatedly saying marketing is a mix, and the mix has to lend itself to a profit. And if the departments don't talk amongst each other and bring in their expertise, nothing will happen. No chance anything will productive will come out of it, because only marketers can't do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Also, just to give you an example of just to elaborate what I'm saying from an agency point of view, just I mean, simply having to me, this is my personal opinion. Simply having a creative department is insulting, because is that implying that other people are not creative, right? Right. So like you said, the mirror being creative is inherently a human quality. That's how we have managed to evolve through the years.
Yeah.
But now when you come to the most established agency, even you see division. You don't see the account person bringing in that input, right? You don't see a team coming together to develop an idea. It's always one person thinking of one thing, and his perception not being it's not complete because other people are not pitching in, right? That is that one instance at a very granular level.
Sadly, you're working in a world that, I don't know. I saw this in advertising in the last like 5 years, where account teams don't play the part. They play the part of operational managers, and rather not the. Uh,
Whoa.
What?
Did he rage quit?
Whoa. No,
ah,
something's up with the connection today.
No, Mihira did a Mihira and forgot to plug his laptop into the power again.
Of course.
Ah,
This
okay.
he did this on the stream the last time as well.
Yeah.
All right.
He's still getting used to it. But yeah, I'm sorry I cut out early. I don't know if you guys even caught what I was saying.
You stopped it actually.
Actually, oh wow, that doesn't help. So no, what I was saying, what I was thinking of was one of these key shifts in consumer behavior that is happening inside Colombo. I don't know how widespread it is globally, but within Colombo is that people are really getting used to ordering their groceries and stuff online, right? How much of that online behavior is going to keep continuing, and like how will that affect the way that we interact with the consumers? Because previously, like Facebook was merely a vector, whereas now it's perhaps one of the only ways to actually get through to them.
So research says 34%.
Okay.
34% of the people already using these services might continue to do so after the curfew is lifted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And interesting fact, in Colombo district, which is considered a red zone for the virus, 57% of the people don't think that they will ever catch the virus. They don't think there's a possibility of them catching the virus.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
They
being demarcated as a red
this,
zone.
numbers from Acha?
Sorry.
Where did you get these numbers from?
A couple of our research agencies.
Oh, so what are they saying? They are saying that people don't believe that they will get the virus.
57% of the people in Colombo don't think that they'll get the virus.
That I think you will get 57% of everyone for everything.
Deny everything. Yeah.
No, but I
So-
mean, I'd like to counter argue. I feel like I'm being really careful, and I feel like the likelihood that I'll get the virus is really low. But then all it takes is one guy in any of our groups to get it, and then it's done, right? Everyone's confidence just disappears.
And it's not like you can function on a day-to-day basis thinking, oh crap, I'm going to get the virus. Like you can't function like that, right?
Yeah.
Much like the normal situation, not normal situation that we were talking about last time.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
it's sort of like death. Like you don't walk around thinking, oh, I can die at any second. You don't think that.
I mean, if you do, you need help, and I mean, I guess we can drop a link in the description in turn.
So let me come back to Vele's question because I think I got dropped off in between. The thing I don't know why this has happened. You're a planner, so I see your pain, but because I was a comms planner as well at JWT.
Okay.
I mean, in the good old days, suits, account executives played a pivotal role in crafting the direction of the brand. I mean, they were the custodians of the brand. And we worked very, very closely with my creative to the point that almost all my like closest friends are all creative guys. Because identifying a problem, identifying the client's needs, and converting them into a sensible conversation with a creative person is the responsibility of an account executive, yeah, or a planner for that matter. This entire thing falls apart moment an account team becomes an operational team. Account teams are not operations. The best account teams that I've worked with, the best account execs I worked with were all creative. They could do their own ads. They could produce. They write their own. They could write the. They have almost all of them. Like 90% of the creative people, account people I work with, has written at least one script in their careers. They all could write their own scripts. They can all do their own copy. Most of them could do their own graphics. So we were multi-capable when shit hit the ceiling. All of that doesn't mean that we were taking the jobs of a creative team, but it meant that we were capable of understanding what the creative was going through. At the same time, we were capable of understanding what the client was going through because we had a far more grounded view about business as well. So that collaboration was always there. I see it. I see your point because I see it getting lost in translation because there aren't. I personally have not seen like really high quality account people in agencies in the last 4 to 5 years versus 10 years ago when I'm like it's not harking back to a time that when I was in advertising, but 10 years ago the account teams were so glued to the creative process that they literally walked in tandem. Yeah. So collaboration in that scale is always, I'm like, imagine like you are only talking about account teams and creative teams. AV teams are very critical. Good AV people can make great ideas come alive. Activation teams are very critical. They come make ideas come alive. So there is this large band of people that have to collaborate effectively to get a strong idea, get a strong thought across.
What do you guys think has caused this change? Like this difference between like 5 to 10 years ago to now, and this transformation into this. Like, is it a form of specialization? Is that what they're doing, or are they just like
I
ditching
don't
half
know.
of their job?
I will let Vele answer this.
This can get me in trouble. I'm anyway going to do it. So I think
He's
somewhere
talking
down the
hypothetically.
line,
He's talking hypothetically.
none of this is real. This is all theoretical. So this is my take on it. I think somewhere down the line, advertising lost its glamour, and the jobs inside advertising just became jobs. Whereas earlier, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mihira, earlier 10, 20 years ago, I think the scene was when you are in advertising, you are in advertising. It's not a job. It's like you eat and drink and breathe advertising. That passion, I think, got lost somewhere down the line.
So I think Vele hit the nail on the head. I would slightly correct that insight into something slightly different. I think advertising was the sexier. Advertising 20 years ago was the entrepreneur of today. Multiple brands, multiple creations. You get put on stage for it. You get recognized for it. So you got fantastic talent into the pipeline. You got like really high quality, high level talent into the system.
And you actively celebrate them as well, right? Which is with
You
the
actually
awards.
celebrate it and all. Yeah. And in the last 5 years, because there are, so for example, if I'll guarantee you this, if Diresh was not born 10 years after me, Diresh would be in advertising. I'm 100% certain about it. Diresh would have done a internship in advertising for a long time, at least, or Diresh would have done a stint in advertising, because it, rather than going into entrepreneurship, which was completely, I mean, like the world has evolved, but it was sexy to come into advertising and be a creative and understand things and all that. He would have moved on from it fast, but irrespective, he would have done a stint in advertising. If I'm talking about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. If he was born in the same batch, he would be a creative. He would be a creative person in advertising. So that we lost, and more and more suits end up in, to me, either in more and more suits that are creative, that have the energy to go through a account executive's job, which is a very tiring and arduous, thankless job sometimes. When you have that amount of energy, it's better to start your own damn company or start your own thing. Why do you want to work for somebody else? So that I think that shift has happened, and as a result, you get the pool of talent that advertising absorbs has reduced. And on top of it, it has become less sexy, and people are there for a job and not a lifestyle. Because advertising was a lifestyle. It was sold as a lifestyle as well. Yeah. And it was a cool lifestyle to be in, because, I mean, while all your colleagues were going to university and going to college parties with 2 bottles of beer, you had bucket loads of alcohol, beautiful women or beautiful men. with questionable personalities, all mingling around. So it was a sexier thing to do. So and it was liberal and it was forward thinking and it had many benefits to it. And the other part of it, I think advertising pays much less than the average rate of an entry level at an entry level, which is I think a huge problem. I think if you want to attract creative people uh, outside of entrepreneurship or main core business into advertising, the pay structures have to drastically shift. I've been saying this to all the senior advertising people for the longest time. It's gradually happening, so I'm happy.
Do you guys actually see? So now, I mean, clearly the market is changing, as well as you can't really talk about the past without actually talking a little bit about the future. What do you guys think is going to actually happen as we go along? Like, how is the culture of marketing going to change?
I think the culture of marketing is going to get stronger. I think the idea of consumer centricity, focus on consumer and solve problems of the consumer is going to be the thing that gets stronger, and people who can do it well, who have been trained to do it and who are skilled enough to do it, will get better and better. Will get paid more and will be kept there. Now, if you add a creative bent to that entire exercise, you will be really valuable because you create value. You'll be valuable. Yeah, but one thing, the entire agency structure is most likely going to get dismantled, because while this exercise of COVID-19 will put a dampener on the gig economy because of, I don't know, actually don't know whether it's going to put a dampener on the gig economy. It might end up helping the gig economy quite extensively. We will most likely see more and more people, more and more freelancers supporting brands uh, in across the world, and more and more people who have done 3 to 5 years in advertising agencies will go on their own and find their own jobs and work on their own. Especially the good ones will do things on their own, because they would realize that getting paid peanuts is better, is worse than getting paid for a big job that will give you what, $10,000-$20,000.
Well, do you see this? Do you feel like this is happening among you and your peers to a certain extent, or to some extent or another?
I think Mihir will agree if I say that there are more agencies now than there have ever been agencies in the history of the country.
Correct. You are right. Yes.
So I think that's whatever you explained set in motion.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But even see, I like that it's happening because it shows progress. But also what I've noticed is 80 to 90% of the times they still carry forward this very mechanical vibe to creativity, which I dislike so much. I just don't like
it's completely counterintuitive. I completely agree with you. It's completely counterintuitive that they would leave an established agency to then go ahead and make a clone of exactly what they left with the same problems that you pretty much had over there. And it makes no sense.
So you have agencies that charges, let's say, 90,000, 100,000 for X number of posts to put in the present lingo, and then you have this same guy who quit an agency like that to join to make a small agency who does it for 10,000.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, okay, it's all right, I guess, if the work is good, but then when are these people going to think outside of the X number of posts a month? When is that going to happen? Right. So that is a big question.
So I think you need to unpack that as well, where you are saying, so why you go to established agency, in my view, there are sets of skills that you need to, in order to be a good creative or even a good planner, even a good brand manager, even a good business manager, whatever. there are sets of skills that you need to learn. Like, for example, a brand manager must know his finance, right? A business person must know his finance as well. In much the same way, there are essential skills that are very critical to ensure that you are sellable. So you will have a base of agencies that will always be there, who will, because you need some degree of structure. The idea that creative doesn't have, because as I told at the beginning, advertising is a commercial art, and the commercial part of it you have to learn. The art part of it might be inherent to you, or you might have brought it from college, but the commercial part of it you have to learn. Yeah. And what will most likely happen, the big agencies will remain as it is. They will become churning exercise. Like they will churn out people that have been taught in the core skills of being a good creative. And let me put it this way. It's like being a doctor at General Hospital. Because you see so many patients, you become extremely good at diagnosing patients. That's a good thing about being in an agency, because you will never run out of work, and you will work and work and work and work, and like you go through that for about 5 to 6 years. You have seen everything. You've worked across categories. You worked across, because there is enough work. So you take that skill and go out and do your own thing. Is most likely what is going to happen. And the basic, because the basic of creative thought is not entirely, I mean, it's very easy to learn the mechanisms of creative thought. The mechanics of creative thought are very easy. Just doing it is very like a very set of people, a very set of special people can do it. Now, if you are a genuinely creative person, putting it through a process to get a valued outcome is something that you need to learn. I mean, musicians who are inherently talented will still go to Juilliard, no? I mean, they will still learn the basics. So you need agencies to be there to learn the basics. And I don't think that will ever.
Do you really feel like agencies are going to go from basically being the creative powerhouses that they are to essentially a knowledge-based system over there? That seems highly unlikely, though, doesn't it?
It will happen. It's happening. Agencies are working with freelance partners now. You have to, because their bases are shrinking, so they can't carry overhead, right? I mean, this is what I am saying. Veli, what do you think?
Yeah. It is happening. They definitely need to outsource now. It is one economical, and other it's it's the practical thing to do. I think to Mihira's point, yes, all advertising must be able to sell something. Otherwise, it just becomes art. Art is also good, but what I'm saying is, in the industry that we are in,
doesn't sell shit.
Yeah, if you don't sell it, then might as well stay home, right?
Yeah.
I think that
ahead,
needs to be there. Sorry, Mihira.
Yeah, no, so go ahead. So I was saying, even a painter does an apprenticeship, right?
Ideally, yes.
Yeah, ideally, yes. Because you really need to know how to mix color. I mean, like, how many colors do you have to mix to eventually get, like rather than trial and error, might as well go through an established system and go through it and quickly learn it and get a lot of experience putting it out, then just randomly going out and saying, this is what I'm going to do. Very few people can do it because it's just too complicated. Like, mentoring or training or skill development is essential for any starting point. I think that you can't do without.
an issue I see in that particular side of things is that even if you go to as a creative, if you go to a ad agency and you work there for a while, the issue is once they leave and start getting into the gig economy, they still don't know how to handle clients. They still don't know how the strategy came to be.
Yeah.
So that issue is probably why they leave, create their own agency or their own design studio, and then still put shit work out because they don't know how to push back against a client when it needs to happen, or they don't know how to assess a client's business problem.
But
That
I
will-
mean that
that will
pretty
get-
much. Go ahead, man.
Oh, look at you guys, so cute.
So no, what I was trying to get to over there is that I think that kind of establishes Vele's point of we need a lot more collaboration in how these things work, because clearly those creative guys are either A, not paying attention during the planning meetings and the strategy meetings, or B, they are not exposed to it in the first place, which I don't know which one is really happening over there. What is
Yeah, no, you'll be surprised that the economy itself will solve this problem. I
You
am
reckon?
100% of this.
I mean, this is kind of the point of why we build systems like economics and capitalism, right? Eventually, the things that are inefficient will die, and more efficient systems will replace the space that they're taking. You saw those with solely brick and mortar companies turning into online giants, and I mean, I guess you can quite safely say that the economics will solve it, but how and what exactly are you saying is going to be the catalyst over there?
It's not far away where you will find that creatives who are freelancers will hire account executives to lead their business. They will hire planners to lead to manage a project. That will happen.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not happening right now because the creatives who are freelancers are not. Some of them think that they can manage on their own, but the likelihood is, because creative is the value creation point happens at creative, right? It's the idea that value, right? There will be people like celebrities have managers. You will have people saying, okay, fine, I have a project like this. I don't want to deal with the client all the time. I will get somebody who is a freelance account exec, which is not there yet. It will happen. Who will say, okay, fine, I am picking you as a account exec to come in and manage the client on my behalf and talk to the client, listen to the client, etc.
Another thing, what their true intent when they're saying something is, all of that stuff. I mean, there's a lot in that vertical itself that you can start learning. And I mean, with the entire rise of the entrepreneur scene, I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of skills that are sellable, but they don't have the important skill set, which is to be able to sell something. And
we missed you completely.
Oh, so what I was saying was that the rise of the entrepreneur's age, which is what we've been facing for, I think, the last 5 to 10 years, is giving markets a lot of people who can do something that is sellable, but they are out in that market without the skill set to sell it.
Correct.
But that gap is slowly reduced now. Especially, I mean, I'm talking pre-corona, but I feel like that is one of those trends. Like, I completely understand why. So 5 years ago, when we were starting out, it didn't make sense why you needed a sales team. But 5 years later, we completely understand why you need a sales team. So if we are going through this understanding internally, I'm quite certain that we are not the only ones. That there is this awakening throughout the entire economy to a large degree. Either you have to learn the skill set of having to sell something, that it's not enough to be able to just do something. And even in marketing, that's changing. Sorry?
Don't you think, I mean, essentially what a creative is supposed to do is to put together a piece of work that will sell something, right? At the end of the day. when the person who is supposed to
No,
put
I don't agree. I feel like a creative, it's the marketing team's job to make sure that the creative has all the information so that it sells it, but it's the creative's job to make sure someone stops and looks. I feel like those two jobs can be torn apart over there because they're two different specializations. Shocking someone with something is one thing, and then making sure you communicate exactly what you need to communicate is a completely different thing. I mean, you can separate, you can tie those two ideas together most definitely, and that will make you a phenomenal designer. But more often than not, it's like the theories of economic state, division of labor, right? And the more specialized our economies get and the more complex our economies get, the more you would see those two tasks separating out.
See, while I think that it is the marketing department's mainly the marketing department's sort of jurisdiction to say, okay, these are the things that we need to communicate. The essence of how that is communicated is still up to the creative. There is no reason for a creative to need to know who the target audience is if what you're working with is primal human instinct, right? Because if it's just to stop and look.
I don't think you should make it that simplistic.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bit reductionist.
Yeah, though there's a distribution of this.
You are shaking your head.
Yeah, I said
it's not
that
simple.
I do not.
Why do you say it's not that simple? Like, what is your counter argument to that?
No, I mean let's take the example of Sri Lanka. Okay, let's so Diresh, you are communicating to me, right?
Yeah.
And if you didn't know you were communicating to me, and you are given a snapshot of what the average Sri Lankan consumer looks like, now that you've stopped and taken a look at the snapshot, and now you're developing a majestic visual, and you're trying to sell it to me, it won't work.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Right. So what I'm saying is this: I've shown you a snapshot of the average Sri Lankan consumer.
Okay, sure.
Okay, and now that, like you said, you have stopped and taken a look at who the average consumer is, right? But no one told you that you're not communicating to the average consumer. You're communicating to, let's say, Mihira, right?
Right. Okay.
And now you're making this majestic piece of art that is meant to compel a sale, but do you think you'll hit the spot in that case?
No, so I've been given wrong information at that point, right?
That's inefficient. That entire exercise becomes inefficient then, because you worked on something that is then becomes inefficient. So, guys, I think what Vijay is trying to say is, and what I'm trying to say is, it's far more nuanced than that. It's far more detailed than that, and you can't simply say, okay, if you give the right information, the creative guy will come up with a creative piece. That's not how it works, because it's multiple level. Communication is complex. Why? Communication is very difficult. That's the first thing you need to know. There are very few people who can do it well.
Yeah.
The reason that, because there are millions of people who do it, there are extremely few people who can do it well. Yeah. There are extremely few creatives who can create advertising that works for consumers and are progressive and forward thinking and breaks the boundary, etc. There are very few. So why that is the case is because it is nuanced, because not only the account executive that gives the brief, or the account planner who gives the brief, but the creative that reads the brief must have the same degree of understanding that the account executive, I mean, there has to be a meeting of minds there. That's why there are
Right, right. No, no,
multiple
okay. So I'm talking from inside a bubble right now, right? Because the kind of people that I interact with are generally people who understand the business side. Like the designers I interact with are designers who understand the business side of things quite well too. So I'm probably talking from inside the bubble. I don't have I haven't worked in like an established agency, so I don't know what
Yeah.
your average designer is like.
Welcome to real life.
Yeah, that is. This feels like shit. Why, how do you guys go through this?
It's a lot of hard work. I mean, like I tell you, it's a lot of frustration, especially if you are young. I guarantee you, if you are not mature enough to understand the full spectrum of business that is surrounding you, for a creative, it's very difficult. For an account executive, it's very difficult, but it's still a little bit better. Because every piece you put out, you're thinking, why the fuck doesn't this? So generally, all creatives believe that all brand managers are idiots. 99% of the time, that's the case.
Wait, that
Why
brand
does
managers are idiots.
that they are idiots?
Okay.
Brand custod, like,
Oh shit.
almost. Bele, you can attest to this, right? All,
Yes, certainly.
uh, almost all creatives believe that brand managers are idiots. About 90% of see, clients are idiots is a general norm again in the industry. I think clients are to a certain extent idiots because see, clients who have a very good consumer centricity, who know exactly what the consumer wants and have strong capability to understand insight, they are not idiots. They will be always very, very good. And not only will they be always be very good, they will be able to direct you in the right direction, saying specifically in that right direction. Because young creatives always think, okay, fine, they don't understand, because the creative idea comes out of a person, right? That a person's creative thought may not sync with a multi-million, multi-billion rupee business that is out there. So there is always dissonance. There is always clashing of thought. That will never go away because there is always creatives or account executives when they are young. There's general lack of maturity. And what a say a senior marketing manager knows after 20 years in a business is far more about that business. They may not know about creativity, but they know their business. And that's why they're there. Otherwise, they won't be marketing managers. You must pay. You need to give you need to pay attention to that. So that dissonance will permanently be there. That the clients don't know what they are talking about, and creatives are creative, and that will never go away. And you will always get stupid ideas, like in much the same way. I'll tell you from the other side of the same spectrum. There are hundreds of ideas, if not thousands, that come up, and we come and say, "Fuck, that was a dumb idea." In much the same way, the creative will say that was he's a dumb client. I say we that the difference is that as well. You'll always say he's a dumb client, he or she is a dumb client, and the client will most likely always say that is a dumb idea. We will never question the creativity of the person.
Oh, that's because creatives don't really think of themselves as people. They are their ideas, right? So the bigger insult is your ideas
yeah.
suck.
So they both equally hurt. They both equally
Yeah,
hurt. Just knowing where it hurts,
yeah.
where to slowly put it and turn it.
Do you guys think that the second one is an insult? I've heard it plenty.
Which is
That's a dumb idea.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I've
enjoyed
gotten thick
Among
skin
Us
for it
games.
over time.
So, I mean, that still doesn't make it any less painful. I mean, it's just that you're desensitized to it, but there is this a certain level of unit of pain that is involved in hearing that an idea of yours that you thought was a brilliant idea enough to go tell someone was a dumb idea, right? And like,
Oh, yeah.
shit, okay. I mean, that part is there, but you get used to it. You get used to the rejection.
Crawl back
But
into depression for a while, but
you just get faster at coming back out.
yeah.
So my general response to most, so I make it a point to be a little bit more rude to young creatives. I am very sharp. I try my level best to be as sharp as possible in giving feedback on a creative piece, and I make an extra little bit of effort. I am generally rude, but I make an extra little bit of effort to make it a little ruder. Because
You got to break them when they're young, you know.
yeah, no. So to me, I might be completely wrong about this. It's me hammering a sword into place. It's me throwing a sword. It's hitting the sword. So if you don't hammer it, I have a bad feeling that you will not be ready for it. So I tend to be a little, because I have been in advertising. I can do this with a little bit more. I'm far more carefree about it versus my colleagues who are very gentle about it. And most of my colleagues are generally not very, but they're gentle. They tend to be a little bit more gentle about the idea, culling an idea. But I choose to be a little bit more aggressive in culling an idea or reshaping an idea, because I think, especially if I'm receiving it from a young person, because I think it's necessary to understand the pain of getting hit, or feeling the pain of your idea getting burnt. I think I'm developing skill. I might be wrong. I might break them down, but that's my way of doing it.
I mean, you most definitely are developing a skill. Not so sure about the creative.
Anyway, I think we've gone on for how long?
1 hour and 28. But I think we're roughly around 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So no, we have the second question. Let's try and wrap that up as soon as possible.
Quick.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Second topic, not a question. No. Yeah.
Second part of the discussion.
Yeah. So I think we were actually getting dangerously close to leading into that a little while ago, but you shouldn't always do what your boss asks you to do.
Never. Don't. Okay.
If you by any chance work in the Unilever marketing department, don't listen to him.
Okay. Couple of things. So first thing, somebody gave me this. My former boss gave me this advice. Between your opinion and my opinion is more valuable because I get paid more.
Okay. Tell him to take his massive cock off the table.
No, but I think that is a very true statement, right? My opinion is more important because people around me have given me more money to do what I do because I have created value. I have experience creating value. Okay.
I mean, that works in a meritocratic system. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Between your fact and my fact, if your fact is right and that disproves my fact, then you are right.
Okay. I mean, right is right in that instance, basically.
Exactly. So, should you listen to your bosses? Yeah, generally people become I'm not talking about like immediate lower management bosses, but people become people get to where they are by doing something or the other that is valuable, right? It might be kissing ass as well, but they get to where they are by you need to be conscious about that as well. It should not be generally everything my boss says is wrong. If he's a complete idiot, it might be the case. Then your entire company is fucked. So just leave. It's a better way of looking at it. Uh, but if you, if somebody is like, I mean, like I have violent clashes with my bosses. I've always had violent clashes with my bosses. And thankfully, I work in a culture where those violent clashes are not considered to be. It's not a black mark on me. It doesn't hurt me. I have an opinion. I am passionate about that opinion, and I will present that opinion to the best of my capability. They have a different opinion, and we clash, and this happens all the time. It's almost a norm. Uh, I love I love my the people that work for me in my team to have differing opinions. I enjoy I enjoy the debate and the fire that comes with your personal opinion and that the clash. But you must always remember why people end up where they are getting paid more is because they may know a little bit more about the world. That's my view about it.
So
Vinay, what's your take on it?
I think there clearly are two extremes. One is the my boss is always generally wrong is one extreme. It's either that is an outlier for me. If you are the kind of junior who thinks that either your boss is for real an idiot or you might have ego issues, so you need to have that in check. And there's the other end where the boss is always right. Right that is also an outlier in which case you just need to get the fuck out, right?
Agree,
Okay.
completely agree on
in
that.
Yeah, in the middle there is a kind of misunderstanding. There's a kind of gray area where people go in with the assumption that since this person is my superior, I can't have my own opinion. That needs to change,
Oh
because
yeah,
what I have been seeing over and over is there's nothing wrong with the superior. It's just that there is no input from the lower ends, right? So when
Yeah.
I have my team meetings, it's always you need to fucking murder someone here. You need to prove a point. You need to have an opinion, right? If that is not there, if you don't have an opinion as a professional, then something's wrong with you, right? But sadly, in our industry, I see that a lot.
people without opinion. God, I
No,
thought
no,
advertising was
the opposite, the opposite. People who blindly follow their bosses or don't do things because they're scared, right?
that's normal, man. I mean, that's normal everywhere. It's not industry. It's intelligence. It's not industry. It has nothing to do with industry. Yeah, like it
So
depends
what?
on the
Yeah.
if you put in any industry, if you put high IQ people in one room, you will always have differing opinions. It will always be there, or the opinions will be completely in sync that it will always work. I mean, like it will not always work, but it will work. It's not an industry problem. I don't believe that it's an industry problem at all. There are industries that are very you need to break this up a little bit more as well, because there are industries that are regimental. Like for example, in sales, and I ran a sales team. I don't give a fuck about your opinion. I give you a target, you hit it. If you don't hit it, I penalize you. There is no if and but about this shit. I don't care whether the market is depressed or the world is crashing and burning and all that shit. I could not care less. I have blasted people in proper filth, knowing full well that their tasks are impossible. Because that is the regimentation of that system. It is my task to change the target. But he has no choice. He has no opinion about, he cannot have an opinion about his target. So that's one extreme. But in cerebral jobs, where you need thought to be exchanged, you have to, people need to understand that they might be wrong. I'm like, it's always important that to listen and respond to it in a constructive way. But again, you need to break this up. It's not simple, and I don't think advertising, I think, should have the most amount of variance. Advertising must have the most amount.
I am talking about marketing and advertising as one common industry. I think advertising has this to a lesser extent, but to be frank, I think most clients I work with, I have seen this.
No.
I think there's a security component. I mean, if IBM was probably working off some sort of an insight when they came up with the campaign that said no one got fired for buying an IBM. Like that was from the 80s, I think, right? So there's some sort of insight there. Like there are people, they really don't want to risk their jobs, right? And pissing your boss off is a really good way to risk your job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you work around that though? Like how it has to come from the corporate culture, no? You can't, an employee can't change that.
I'd like to disagree. Honestly, how I would like to see this argument of is your boss smart or dumb and how should you react to your boss is that, I mean, from an economic point of view, right? You are labor. You are there to add value in a certain way. And if someone has hired you, it is because you are there to fulfill the vision of whoever hired you. Okay. With that logic, we can push it a little bit further and say the best thing that you can possibly do as an employee is whatever they say, try and really understand what they are asking of you. It may be as simple as go get me this sale, but it could be coming from a deeper motive. Like, for example, we need to deal with a certain cash flow issue that is going to come in 3 months. If this guy does not do it here, then that problem arises. So rather than purely trying to look at it in terms of do what you're told, the doing what you're told, like what you're told is the part that you really need to be paying attention to. Is what you heard really what he's trying to communicate over there, he or she is trying to communicate there? And I think that is a way to change it going upwards, where like if you are always fulfilling the actual objective of whoever your superior is, then not only are you're permanently adding value, but the risk of you even going against their wishes but still like achieving the objective that they set out for you adds the value that is necessary to keep you in your place. Or am I thinking, is that wishful thinking?
No.
I don't think that's a practical way to go around it though. Because like say you were the boss with your amazing skills of communication where this thing and that thing needs to happen, how is anyone supposed to figure it out?
Precisely, yeah. So it's, I guess from the other end, it has to be drilled into bosses' heads. If you have people working underneath you, communicating effectively is a critical part of your job, and that shouldn't come as a surprise, because if it does come as a surprise, you've been a pretty shit boss. And I think it's important to understand what you want out of a situation as well, and to communicate that as clearly as possible. Because if you have a bunch of drones who whatever they will do, whatever you say, from what I can understand of how our modern world works, you are about to be automated, right? Those who can actually think on their feet and solve problems that superiors bring and tell you, you know what, fix this issue. That really makes a difference.
I will tell you without any doubt.
Mm-hmm.
We like, for example, like I will take my company as a this thing. We hate people say yes sir, no sir. I mean, like, we can't stand them. We want people with opinion. We want people with not only opinion. We want people who can justify their opinion. We don't want people with opinion. It's not only opinion. We need people who can justify their opinion using facts, figures, and sense. What and it's a leadership culture, and it's a company culture to have that thought process ingrained. Like, for example, you're talking about communicating to people, right? It is something that is drilled into us. How to communicate to your subordinates is like a your me as a line manager is judged on it. If you are bad at it, you are told you are bad at it, and I am going to reduce your bonus because of it. And this happens
Oh, wow.
multiple times. You can hit all your numbers, but your people will be miserable because of you. Your bonus, your VPA or your variable pay can come down. And it's strictly enforced. See, having a culture of leadership which is to understand your subordinates, talk to your subordinates, give them specific direction is a mandatory requirement of being a leader, and it's a culture. It's a framework. It's a culture. It doesn't come to a individual. If it comes to a individual and no one else has it, that becomes an anomaly. But like companies that Unilever do is they like you will talk to 90% of Unilever managers and talk to 90% of Unilever subordinates. You will see that majority of them are very happy with their their leadership, their understanding of the immediate leadership is very good. Not the senior leadership, that's a different thing. But the immediate leadership, the relationships are very good. Because the line managers are taught how to manage it. And they go through a process learning it. So the general statement that you should not listen to your boss, I think, is too much of an extreme. I think saying that I will purely listen, like doing things that are not in agreement with your sentiment just because your boss says it is another extreme.
Yeah.
But my insight for this is it's a purely a difference of intelligence and structure. Number one, somebody who is smart will not listen to a dumb command in a cerebral world, in an environment where your job is cerebral. That's the primary driver of it. You will just simply not do it. And a boss in a cerebral environment will never say my opinion is the right opinion. It can't.
Shouldn't, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know how strictly that actually how realistic
the
that
second
is.
part of that is structure. Sorry, there was a that interaction must be governed by a structural framework of some sort. That says,
What do you mean by
we reward people who can listen to people, and we reward people who have a different.
Right, okay.
Right.
Like
So
it needs to be. Oh, yeah.
this sort of thing needs to be built into the corporate culture, no? Whether it's like a top down, because that's it. It was in the book, the CEO Factory. The way a subordinate is treated by a manager is it's written like there is a formula for this.
There's a formula.
Yeah.
We built a formula after many years of iterations. It's a consistently evolving formula. Like to handle millennials, we know because we learn, because we talk to each other. The senior management team talks to each other. Everyone talks to each other to manage it. So it's not a blind yes, no, one extreme versus another extreme. But if there's one thing I can leave you with, if it is your opinion versus your boss's opinion is more worthwhile because he gets paid more. He or she gets paid more. That's simple. So don't argue that. If you want to disprove somebody above you, bring the facts and tell the facts. Logically disprove them. And if it still doesn't happen, leave the company or complain about the boss.
Those are your options.
Then take the facts to his boss or her boss.
Take
Rat
the
on
facts to
them.
his boss.
And just repeat until you get to the president.
Yeah.
All
That's
right,
one
guys.
way to
I
look
think
at
we are definitely running way over time, but this is a great conversation.
It was a fun conversation also.
It
Yeah.
was fun. It was fun.
Yeah. Is Tanuj asleep?
Did I answer did that question? Was that question answered? That the original question that you asked. Do you agree with what I said?
The first part or the second part? Or what
The
we
second
just
part.
discussed? Yeah, I think you were spot on. I think Dinesh was a little generous when he paraphrased me and said you should ask your boss to shut the fuck up, which is not what I said.
You said tell him to shut the fuck up.
I think there certainly are extremes, and leaving that out, I think what you just said perfectly sticks. If you are entitled to your opinion, and if you just try and go to argue based on your opinion without any factual backing, then you are a bloody idiot, right? A, and then B, if your boss is desensitized to facts, then there's very little that you can do, right? But what I'm saying is there's plenty of area between the latter and the former. There's plenty of room for people to actually grow up here, walk up to their superior and say, this is what I think of the situation, this is what needs to be done, and they are in a healthy conversation can start.
Correct. Absolutely.
Especially in a as a lot of critical thinking to solve problems. Especially because if you're just going to lay down and just take it, you might end up being the first wave of people who are let go on.
And I mean, if you think of it logically, why wouldn't you want, as long as both brains are good, why won't you have two brains trying to tackle one problem instead of having one brain trying to tackle the problem?
Correct.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Rationally, yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, humans are not rational beings.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think
thanks
great
for the conversation, guys.
Thanks for this.
Thanks,
Sudden,
guys.
but
Definitely do this
great
again.
conversation.
It was brilliant. I enjoyed
All
it.
right, guys. So then we're going to be heading out with the stream. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys.
Ciao.